Hello my friends, welcome to today's video on vegetarianism. October is World Vegetarian Month and yesterday, October 1st, was World Vegetarian Day. So let us take a look at what is vegetarianism. We'll also take a look at some stats of vegetarianism as well as the benefits of eating vegetarian or being a vegetarian, not eating vegetarians. That isn't vegetarian. And the fourth thing that we will be looking at is how we can implement this information in our everyday and maybe skip meat on one or two occasions and try to be a bit more vegetarian. The definition of vegetarianism is the practice of abstaining from the consumption of meat. This includes red meat, poultry, seafood, and any other flesh of any animal. And this may include abstention from byproducts of animal slaughter, such as leather. Being vegetarian usually also includes abstinence from certain processed foods that have animal-derived ingredients, like marshmallows, gummy bears, or certain cheeses. Let us take a look at the statistics of vegetarianism. So, geographically speaking, most vegetarians are located, or for a long time in history at least, were located close to the equator. And this had a very simple reason, namely that living around the equator you had a lot more access to many fruits and many more vegetables compared to more Arctic or Antarctic climates. And this can also be seen in the recommendations that religions give. So religions that are traditional, that were established close to the equator, recommend vegetarianism much more strongly. So Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, they all recommend vegetarianism much more strongly. In fact, Jainism says that vegetarianism is mandatory for being a Jain. Compare this to more Abrahamic religions compared to the Dharmic religions that we just saw, Dharmic being Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism. More Abrahamic religions like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism do not recommend vegetarianism as strongly. It isn't a mainstream idea, but there are many proponents who advocate for being vegetarian. Another common topic brought up is that humans might have been herbivores or plant-eating animals for a long time, and this is wrong. So a keto and ancestral nutritional specialist by the name of Nora Gedgaudas, maintains that digestive systems of pure herbivores are simply different from ours. Vegetables were also a food having a far greater cost-to-benefit ratio on multiple levels, also taking into account the relative potential toxicity of wild plants and their comparatively poor digestibility, nutrition availability, and caloric value, even cooked. So traditionally, humans were not vegetarians. This we can see this in chimpanzees and other animals, monkeys that we are closely related to. These animals usually are omnivores, glad to pick up anything that they can find and not discriminating between a vegetarian burger or a meat burger. So, to date, there are about 600 million vegetarians worldwide, or about 7.7% of the world population. The 5 countries with the highest vegetarian percentage of vegetarians are number 1, India, with about 33% vegetarians, Mexico with 20% vegetarians, Brazil with 14% vegetarians, and number 4, probably the biggest shocker for me, Switzerland with 14% vegetarians, and Taiwan with 14% vegetarians as well. Some notable vegetarians include Mahatma Gandhi, whose birthday it is today, Confucius, Jane Goodall, Voltaire, the philosopher, and Nikola Tesla, who has 2 electric car producing companies named after him, each taking a different name. There are 4 benefits to being vegetarian. The first is the effect of meat on your general health. The second is the effect of meat production on the environment. The third is a ethical component, and the fourth is a simple economic component. Let's get right into it. The first benefits, effects on the consumer. A 2015 study commissioned by the Federal Commission for Nutrition in Switzerland has found that the long-term consumption of increasing amounts of red meat, and particularly of processed meats, is associated with an increased risk of mortality, cardiovascular disease, colorectal cancer, and type 2 diabetes in both women and men. It is concluded that recommendations for the consumption of unprocessed red meats, and particularly of processed red meats, should be more restrictive than existing recommendations. And this has found to be true across people of different age, of different race, of different BMI, histories, smoking, different blood pressures, lipids, physical activities, and so forth. Meaning that the long-term consumption of meat does tend to have adverse effects on health. Beyond this, most meats also contain hormones and antibiotics, which are not just dangerous on their own when introduced into humans, but the excessive use of antibiotics in meat also gives rise to antimicrobial resistance within the meat, and through consumption, antibiotic resistance within us. More on antibiotic resistance next week. There's another claim that is often made, and it's that being vegetarian makes you less aggressive, or that eating meat makes you more savage, more aggressive, whatnot. And while it does seem intuitive to some people, the fact is that there is no scientific evidence that eating meat makes you more aggressive. The second reason or the second benefit of becoming a vegetarian or being a vegetarian is the strain of meat production on the environment. So not only do farm animals take up a lot of space, but the food that they require to grow also takes up a lot of space. And while this is bad for deforestation, the amount of resources that go into creating meat, be it water, energy, food, and whatnot, also has a very high cost on the environment. For instance, 1 kilo of chicken produces, or the production of 1 kilo of chicken produces 3.7 kilograms of greenhouse gases. 1 kilo of chicken. Pork comes in second with 24 kilograms of greenhouse gases produced, and cattle ranks third at 1,000 kilograms, 1 ton of greenhouse gases produced. And with global meat consumption set to rise by more than 75% as more and more people get wealthy and are able to afford meats, things are only about to get more worse. A study has found that a widespread switch to vegetarianism could curb emissions by more than 2/3. The third component is the ethical component, and we're not talking about just raising animals and slaughtering them. It's actually done in a much more efficient and cold way. So, since 1961, the consumption of meat has skyrocketed, and to meet these demands, companies are now creating so-called concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. And in a CAFO, the animals are stuffed together in quite a small room, given that there are thousands of them on just a few hundred square meters. These animals are just raised by giving them food and antibiotics, and then slaughtered when they're big enough. Because they are put in so tightly together, infections happen very commonly, and to combat these, they are fed antibiotics. Beyond just being disgusting that people would have to also eat antibiotics when all they bought was the meat, the excessive use of antibiotics in these CAFOs has also given rise to antimicrobial resistance, or AMR. What this means is that through the excessive use of antibiotics, some bacteria are able to gain a gene that makes them resistant towards these antibiotics. And now the use of these antibiotics is practically useless because the bacteria can still multiply and spread through all the animals, enter all the meat, and finally end up in the consumer. Beyond just being hell on earth for the 80+ billion animals that are born, fed, and slaughtered annually, more than 80 billion, these CAFOs could also contribute a new germ that could bring the world a second pandemic, one that could be much worse than the one that we have right now. The fourth benefit of being vegetarian is that vegetarianism also has economic benefits. Beyond being cheaper than meat, the consumption of vegetables also means that fewer people are going to experience the health-associated risks that come with high meat consumption. And a 2016 Oxford University study found that if people continue to follow current trends of meat consumption, it could cost the global economy up to $1.6 trillion by 2050. So we've heard all the benefits of becoming vegetarian, but how do we implement this? Does this mean that we have to give up meat forever? Not necessarily. I think the most important thing of transitioning, the most important points to look at when transitioning to vegetarian is to take it slow and easy. You don't have to give up meat forever. You can also just try going vegetarian for one meal, 2 or 3 meals a week, maybe every other day, or maybe incorporating a meatless Monday every week. There are many ways that you can take small steps and go vegetarian a few bites at a time and do yourself, the environment, your wallet, and your moral conscience a lot of favors. In fact, there are many companies today like Impossible or Beyond that are working on plant-based fake meats that are supposed to have the same taste and texture, and certain beet burgers even tend to bleed like meat. So the transition to becoming more vegetarian has never been easier before. As a vegetarian myself, I was born a vegetarian and raised a vegetarian. I can give you some tips on how to becoming a vegetarian. I've helped a few friends, and I think the most important point is to take it easy. Don't rush it, don't just go all vegetarian. I've noticed that many people who are used to eating a lot of meat and then go vegetarian for a week feel an energy drop. They feel they're a bit murray, a bit hangry at all times. So what I recommend is maybe going vegetarian for one meal a day, one meal in one day a week, and then slowly ramping it up to 2 meals a week, 3 meals, 4 meals, until you're comfortable. Just work at your pace, and if you deem these benefits as worthy, then work at it at your own pace. Another important point is to make sure that you're covering all your nutritional needs. So making sure that you get enough fruits and vegetables, that you cover your vitamins, making sure that you're getting all your proteins. Some good vegetarian sources of protein are seitan, tofu, or paneer, the Indian cheese, chickpeas, lentils, quinoa, and make sure to use a lot of herbs and spices because they not only make your food taste better, but they also have a lot of health benefits. And my third tip would be to take inspiration from certain vegetarian-friendly cuisines. So some cuisines like Mexican cuisine, Italian cuisine, Lebanese, Ethiopian, Indian cuisine have a lot of vegetarian options, be it salads, curries, burritos, falafels, whatever it is. Try them, see what fits for you, which ones do you like, which ones do you not like as much, and keep experimenting. And that's it for today's video. Do let me know in the comments which are your favorite vegetarian recipes. My favorite will be a Lebanese fattoush, which is a Lebanese salad that has crackers and all kinds of vegetables in it. Let me know what are you doing to becoming more vegetarian, and if you have any other tips for other viewers, do share them in the comments below. Have a nice day, and until next time, bye bye.